One, he was crucified. What all does that mean? Well, one, it points out that he was whipped. How many of you saw the Passion of the Christ? That whipping in there, which I thank God that I was able to be a part of describing that in there, is probably the most realistic I've ever seen of what took place with the cat o' nine tails, the whip, with somebody that was crucified. It had a number of strings of leather, and at the end of each leather was woven into it, tied into it, either sharp, jagged bone or lead with spikes on it. And each one was at a different length. Why? If they were all the same length, when you hit, they would bunch up. And so they did it where all 9 would hit the body at the same time. And when they hit the body, they would pull it down. They would hit the body and then yank it down all the way to the bottom of their legs. And what it would do sometimes, it just would literally shred the back to where there's historical events where you could literally see the spinal cord. And because these sharp jagged would just unravel the skin. And the Jewish law limited to 40 lashes. And from historical record, whenever the Romans did it, to spite the Jews, they'd always do 41, 42, or 43. They would always add to the Jewish law. And that probably definitely happened with Christ. And many people died through the whipping before they ever were crucified. And then it talks about the furka, that he carried his own crossbar. Now, initially, they didn't carry the crossbar of the cross, but they would take from the grinding mill, would have this bar that would go across, and you would push that bar. They would take that bar and strap it on the back of the person. He would carry that up there. And then when they had so many people being crucified, they, instead of using that, they would, inside a barn when you would lock it, like they had the 2 pieces of metal come out, and they take this huge beam and drop it in there so people couldn't open the door. And that was called a furka. And they would strap that to their body. And then after that, they started to use the cross beam of the cross. And they would have to carry that all the way out to the area of crucifixion. Now, Cicero, the Roman philosopher, considered death by crucifixion, quote, the most cruel and hideous of tortures. Will Durant, the historian, said, even the Romans pitied the victims that were crucified. Alexander Menethil, an MD and PhD who studied crucifixion and wrote quite an interesting book on it, said the pain was absolutely unbearable. In fact, it was literally beyond words of description. And so they created a new word to describe it. It's called excruciating, meaning out of the cross. It was the only way they could explain the tremendous pain that a person went through. And then it says, his hands and his feet, meaning right through here, were pierced on the cross. For years, everybody said, that's a fallacy. They never used nails in crucifixion. And Dr. Hewitt from Harvard Theological Review said, the New Testament account of Christ being nailed to the cross was false and misleading. I thought this morning when I was studying this, I thought, I'd like to do a book and just start 100 years ago with Harvard professors and others and just state what they said was untrue and false news, and then document what later they discovered about it being true about biblical accounts and the resurrection all. It would make an incredible book. I don't know how you could put it down and not say, wow, I'm not going to question the scriptures, whether it be the resurrection or what. And so for years, it was called to be legendary. It was considered legendary. And then in June 1968, a dead man spoke up. Dr. Severus discovered, an Italian archaeologist, discovered 4 cave tombs north of Jerusalem near Mount Scopus. And one of the family tombs held 15 ossuaries, which are huge jars, containing bones of 35 family members, individuals. And in ossuary number 4 where there was buried a man, his bones in there, by the name of Johann ben Hagagau. And what they discovered in there, with the spike was even there, a 7-inch spike that had been driven through the ankle bone. And it was preserved because of moisture that had been entrapped. And that's preserved a lot of things over history, trapped within the cave. And maybe like a little stream that would run near there, and the moisture would enter the cave. And it preserved the bones instead of crumbling. And they were dated from about the 2nd century BC to about 70 AD. And all of a sudden they had to say, whoops, we were wrong. People were, right back at the exact time of Christ, people were crucified with spikes. And they were about 7 inches long.